Now, if you guys hadn't seen, a couple of days ago, or at this point, I guess it maybe even be a day in between, I uploaded a video going over, is Pocket Anime worth your money and worth your time? Now, if you guys don't know, Pocket Anime currently is in early access, available for you to buy if you buy the Champion membership on their Discord for $24. And essentially what I was going over is Pocket Anime actually a good monster catching game? Does it, does the anime characters work within the world? And genuinely is what you're paying for or what you're going to be playing when the full release comes out and it's free actually worth your time? And if you guys haven't seen that video yet, again, go check it out. It'll be a link in the description, a link in the pinned comment, as well as also a little itty bitty bubble right there up in the corner where you guys can also go check out the video through there. But yeah, I essentially made that video and you guys are gonna have to watch that video to see how that turned out. But for this video today, guys, I want to go ahead here and just cover a tier list for all the mons that are currently available within the game. And we're going to be going over their hidden traits, we're going to be going over their moves, their types, all of that type of stuff. And this is going to be mostly for story mode. However, this will fit into PvP as well. I essentially think they're kind of two the same. I do think that they could be slightly different. So I do plan on making more tier lists in the future. And if you guys like this content, you guys want to see more of it, remember, subscribe to the channel because I'm going to constantly be making Pocket Anime stuff whenever new updates come out for the betas, as well as when the full game releases. I'm going to be making PvP guides, I'm going to be making, encounter guides, story guides, all that type of stuff. So if you guys want to stay up to date with Pocket Anime and what's going on within that game, remember, subscribe to the channel and like this video because, obviously we spread it around, we can get more people here as well. So I want to go in here and just hop right on into the current tier list. And like I said, we're going to start here at the bottom of the tier list. We're going to be starting with the D tier. Now, the D tier is going to consist of two candidates, and that is going to be the Cadet and the Bandit. And I just want to go ahead here and just straight up state that these people are in D tier simply due to the fact that everything about them is awful. And one of the biggest things about Pocket Anime is the fact that a lot of characters only start with 1 or 2 moves. And these guys, literally from what I remember seeing in the information doc that has everything about these animons in the actual game, which I will have a link to down in the description below. I got you, my guys. But they only learn about 1 to 2 moves each. And they have terrible base stats. I mean, awful base stats. Like, none of them are good. And the only thing that even makes these two remotely viable is the fact that they have pretty good traits or abilities, right? Essentially, that their traits are good, which is essentially, the exact same thing as Pokemon abilities. They're pretty solid. They're not the worst. They're not the best. They could be better. They could be worse. I'm just going to be honest, but overall, they were okay, but these two are going to go ahead here and just be for the D tier. They're not good. You don't need to worry about them, and just try not to use them as much until, eventually you can get better Animons. So, now moving over into the C tier, we're going to have the Battle Wolf, which I want to go ahead here and just say a little bit about the Battle Wolf. So the Battle Wolf, he does have a good trait. He has essentially the Intimidate ability to where he can lower Mon's attack on switch-in. However, he only has 1 move. And this ability is so good that it makes him better than both of the 2 characters that are in D tier. Because without this ability, simply he would be down there exactly with them. He is just not good enough to hold his own. He only gets 1 move currently. And on top of being neutral typing, is just not good whatsoever. So I just cannot recommend him any higher than the bottom of C tier. But right above him, as the highest member in C tier, is Corbin, otherwise known as, I don't know why his name is not coming to me right now, but obviously he's from One Piece, obviously, and he's a water type, which is, interesting, right? Because he's actually currently the only water type that is in the game. Now, the issues that he has are, a lot to do with damage. He's essentially a really good supporting character, and he has a great hidden trait, which is essentially a hidden ability. But he lacks any type of damage. He literally has no damage. He has 1 water move that does damage. That's about it. It doesn't do much. And his stats are not there either. So he's just not great. And there are other support mons in the game that currently are better to use, or that I would personally would recommend people to use over him. So yeah, he's going to be leading off C tier, and we're going to be moving on now. Next up is going to be the B tier list. Now this one's gonna have a few more people in it, and you guys might be looking like, hey yo, there's some faces in here, and I'm gonna be explaining a little bit of that later. But for right now, we're gonna start off with Joyful. Now Joyful is essentially just Happy from Fairy Tail. He's essentially just a better version of Corbin. He's a support mon that also has priority wind damage, which is super solid. He has a really decent ability where he has a lot of evasiveness so that you can't hit him as easy. As well, having attacks essentially be able to not hit you by 15%, just having that priority move with having wind damage as well, so he can finish off low health opponents. Overall, he's just better I do think that Corbin has a better type, but Happy just does more. He just does more in the game that's going to get you to win more games. After that, we're going to have Ichigo. Now, Ichigo is the worst starter currently in the game. Now, there is 4 starters that are currently available in the game. That is Luffy, Sasuke, Ichigo, and Majin Buu. And Ichigo, by far, is the worst starter in the game. And he has multiple problems and is the biggest disappointment. And it's not even the reason why a lot of other content creators said he was going to be bad. Because a lot of content creators thought he was going to be bad because he was going to be a soul type, which was not the case, at least not for his base evolution. His base evolution is actually neutral. Now, one of the things that you guys got to remember in this game is that literally 1/4 of the roster is also neutral. So he essentially hits 1/4 of the entire roster of what we currently have available in the game neutrally, and then also it doesn't do much to a lot of the other types that are available in the game, as well as also having mons that are super effective against him being fighting type in the game as well. He just struggles. Everything about him is just freaking awesome, because like essentially all he is a better bandit. He has a final move, which is Getsuga Tensho, that doesn't hit 1/4 of the mons in the game, because for some reason they decided to make Getsuga Tensho a ghost type move, which would make sense, right? Until you realize, hey, 1/4 of the entire roster, actually over 1/4 of the entire roster because of the fighting mons, literally close to half of the roster cannot even be hit by Getsuga Tensho because it's a ghost type move, and there is nothing that's super effective on, and it only does 60 damage. And that's just really, really, really weird, right? So it does mediocre damage, and then he also has the weirdest stat scaling I've seen of any starter in the game. For some reason, he has a really, really high special attack stat. None of his attacks are special attacks. They're all physical, and you would think Getsuga Tensho would be a special attack so that it can utilize that special attack stat. It doesn't. It's a physical move, which I don't understand how Getsuga Tensho, a spirit energy blade move, is a physical move. I don't understand how that's there. He just has weird scaling, mediocre damage. He has alright stats, but the stat spread doesn't fit his moveset, and overall he's just not good. He's the worst starter you could possibly pick. You pick him if you want to play the game on hard mode. That is how it is. Ichigo was just dog water. I picked him for my playthrough, and I struggled. I grinded, and I genuinely think picking other starters would have made it so much better. Just so much better. It's gonna be so real. But enough about Ichigo. Let's move on over into Usopp. Usopp's up next. Now, Usopp's up next essentially just because he has some decent damage in his kit, honestly. And it's only because of his trait, which essentially the only trait I found on Usopp is his secret trait, which actually boosts all of his moves to do even more damage, which is really, really, really nice, right? But other than that, he's just lacking moves and coverage. And then his typing also being neutral, and I believe it's dark or... No, it's dark. Yeah, it's neutral dark. It's okay. It's a mediocre typing, but his trait really carries him because it boosts all of his moves that he uses anyway, and he does have more damaging moves and better damaging moves than Ichigo ever could. So overall, Usopp, nice place for, second and B. And then leading off B tier, we're going to have pre-time skip Zoro. Now, pre-time skip Zoro is essentially a really, really solid mon that you could pick up. He's really, really okay. He has a great trait with just okay stats, and honestly, he's a pure wind type, so you don't really have too much to worry about when it comes down to his typing. But the thing that he really lacks right now is just move coverage. He doesn't have enough move coverage to really get in and do enough of what he wants to do. There are other characters that do better than him. I don't think he's bad per se. I just think every character above him is just better at what they do than that. So yeah, that's gonna round out B tier. Next up, we're heading right on over into the A tier, and in the A tier, we're going to be essentially starting at the bottom with Majin Buu. Now, Majin Buu is overall a solid pick for a starter. He has a decent trait and stats. His moves are just lacking damage. That's really it. And you do have to play around effects, which sometimes work and sometimes don't work. That's like one of the biggest things with Majin Buu. You have to play around his effects of things like his candy beam and things like that, where you want to start stunning or, paralyzing that, some of your opponents or stuff like that. And like I said, he does have decent traits that can boost him. But overall, his moveset also that he has right now is just lacking damage. Most of his moves are around 40 to 45 power, I believe. It's just overall, he just doesn't have that. He's more of a utility, but he doesn't exactly work because he's not exactly the fastest utility, but he's still better because he just has higher base stats than all the other mons that are currently in the game. So, you know, while he does have some issues and things going on, overall, I think he fits right, but I think he fits perfectly at the bottom of A tier. I think he's great. Moving on from that, we're going to have Gaara. Now, Gaara, he actually slows down opponents while having decent-ish damage and base stats, which is really, you know, decent already. And he does have a pretty decent trait with Bloodlust. I believe that's the name of the trait. And he can benefit like in a bunch of really, really good conditions. And I think slowing down that team and doing that decent damage while also having a solid, I believe it's like ground or earth typing. I'm pretty sure it's earth typing. Having that solid earth typing with not too many counters, like I said, because the only water type currently in the game is Corbin. Having that solid earth typing, resisting the wind, you know, having not, you know, neutral, not do that much damage. It is great. It pushes him to be very, 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 very good and a very solid pickup. He's just really, really hard to find currently in the game, and that's like one of the biggest issues that I have with him. Now, moving on, we have the Secret Ninja. Now, the Secret Ninja is crazy. So he's a super solid fire type all around. He essentially really doesn't have any negatives, besides his typing of just being pure fire. He has a pretty alright trait, including his hidden trait as well, because he essentially just gets all of Sasuke's traits, which are really good, but we'll talk about that later. And it's essentially like, you know, he's just really good. He has very little negatives besides just his base fire typing, good stats, all that stuff. Really, the only thing is there's just the characters above him are better, and that's it. It's just he's a very, very, very solid, very, very solid mon to have on the team. Just the other characters above him are better. Now, moving on, we are going to have Axe Hand. Now, Axe Hand is an extremely solid pick, and he also has Intimidate as a trait, which is super, 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 super great because it lowers that attack on the switch-in, which is just something you want to have when you're packing such a defensive type of mon, right? So he's a solid pick, you know, with that Intimidate going off really good. He has a really good base stat total, and he has really high damaging moves that either lower an Animon stats, which essentially will lower you down, or he will inflict a status effect. I believe it's bleed or injury. I believe that's what it's called. It's both. So he does a lot. He does a lot. Good damage, great typing so far since there's really no counters. Kind of, in fact, there's really not any water types. All that stuff looks amazing and is just good. Like overall, and he does beat out Secret Ninja because, you know, obviously he is Earth type. So I think Axe Hand is very, 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 very solid. It's definitely one you're going to want to pick up, and it's probably one of the best overall that you can put on the team right now. Now, moving after that, we have Inuyasha. Now, Inuyasha has amazing move coverage, great traits, and the only issues that he really does have that makes him kind of not being that S tier is the fact he just has low base stats. His base stat total is his biggest issue, with it being a total of 238, which is just really, 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 really small. It's not big enough, I think, for the character. I think he needs a slightly bigger stat pool, but hey, you know, this could always change with time, with updates and things like that. So you never know. We will always just have to wait and see. As well. And then also, you know, his typing being, you know, demon is like, you know, just solid demon is like, it's okay. It's not too bad, not too great. But yeah. Now, finishing out A tier, we are going to have Yamcha. Now, Yamcha is a part where this can kind of get a little bit that. Now, a lot of people are not fucking with Yamcha, alright, because he has a alright base stat total, as well, you know, and his moves overall aren't the greatest. However, he has a really, really, really good hidden trait. Being the fact that if you hit an enemy with enough damage with the move Energy Wave, they straight up just get executed, which is really good. It's essentially just, if you do enough damage, you are going to essentially be able to straight up kill, just straight up a mon out, and that's what puts him at the top of A tier. I think without it, he probably would be more towards the bottom. He'd probably be right above Majin Buu in A. I think that's probably the only debatable slot, maybe, and also in singles, I believe he might be a little bit worse, but for right now, I got Yamcha leading out A. Surprisingly enough, I still think he's really, really, really solid. You guys can tell me what you guys feel about that in the comment section down below, if you guys believe in that or not. But yeah, no, he seems to be really, really good right now, and I generally think, obviously we'll have to wait for the game to develop more and, you know, to get more of like a meta and things that are going on, but he could potentially fall down to being maybe even a B tier character. But for right now, I just think that hidden trait is just too good to pass up. Just that fact that you could just straight up execute an enemy. Really, 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 really solid. Now, we're finally moving on into the final tier, and this is going to be the S tier, the best of the best, the characters that you could pick up and play within this game that are going to be the characters that you want, just to have when it comes into PvP and everything else, right? So first off, we're going to start at the bottom with Naruto. So Naruto is essentially just a better version of Zoro. No, I'm not even kidding. He has great base stats that are really, really good. He has insane move coverage, essentially the exact same move coverage, I think, as Zoro, but just maybe even slightly better. And then he also has abilities that allow him to boost his moves further because he uses ninjutsu, which is really, 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 really sick. So he can boost those moves to do even more damage while having great, having great move coverage on top of being just a pure wind type. So he doesn't have too many weaknesses. So overall, that's the whole reason why he's at the very bottom. After that, we got my boy Luffy. Now, Luffy is where I think some of these things can change up. I think Luffy could potentially be in front of Sasuke, or Sasuke and Luffy can kind of flip places. I do think that this is kind of a thing, but I want to explain a little bit more about that. The only reason why I have Luffy currently under Piccolo is because Piccolo does actually get, I believe, psychic moves. And Luffy is pure fighting, so he does kind of get messed up by that. But overall, Luffy is an amazing, amazing mon to have. He's literally amazing because he's both fighting type, which right now, with essentially 1/4 of the roster being neutral, he is super effective. So you will have a very easy time getting through most of the trainers that are available within the game, as well as also having a decent time in PvP with him 100%. But not only that, he has high damaging moves, amazing stats, one of the best hidden traits within the game, which literally makes him take less damage from physical attacks, as well as making him completely immune to electricity. So literally one of the hardest boss fights in the game currently right now is fighting against Loxus. With his hidden trait, you make that completely unbearable. And even with, other, actual fighting against people and things like that, you can switch in on that. You can plan around that, and just having that fact of, also you take less damage from physical attacks, which, by the way, most attacks in the game are physical right now. There's very few special attacks, besides a lot of them are on, most of the time, Majin Buu, Secret Ninja, or they're going to be on, obviously, Piccolo, or maybe even like Naruto, but most of them are still going to be physical. So he's just insane. Like, he's genuinely insane, has really good coverage, and overall just probably is the best starter in the game currently. However, I do think Sasuke beats him out, and I want to explain that a little bit, so just, hang on a little bit. But we got to talk about Piccolo first, all right? So Piccolo has amazing move coverage with some of the highest damaging moves in the game, like Special Beam Cannon. He has an ability that boosts his special attack even further, which is just freaking crazy. And then he's also a dual type. He's one of the only dual types in the game, besides, I believe, Usopp. And I'm pretty sure Usopp is the only other one in the game who is also dual typing. But he is dual typing, and he is dual typing of Nature and Demon, which is freaking crazy. So that gives him a lot of coverage, really good stats. Like I said, he can boost himself with his moves, as well as also having ability that boosts his special attack, has some of the most damaging moves in the game. I mean, he's just overall just an extremely solid pick, and honestly isn't even that hard to pick up. So honestly, I would definitely say Piccolo is probably the second best character in the game, second or third best, easily, without a shadow of a doubt. And now, I want to talk about why I think Sasuke is currently the best character in the game. And like I said, you can technically kind of switch Luffy and Sasuke around. I think you could potentially switch those two around. However, I do want to say why I do think Sasuke is better. And that's essentially because Sasuke is a better version of the Secret Ninja. He has the exact same traits which boost his moves further, and if with his special ability, he essentially gets the Sharingan, which then boosts his evasiveness, and I believe it also boosts his speed or attack, I believe, as well. Something like that. Which is just freaking incredible, as well as also the fact that Sasuke gets actual lightning moves on top of being able to just hit that freaking lightning infinity, right? So he can essentially he can use the lightning infinity trait to boost those electric moves and everything else, which is super sick, because that hits all of the wind types, which will do damage to Naruto, it'll do damage to Zoro, it'll do damage to Happy, it does damage to a lot of the really good supporting and or just straight up damaging mons within the game. And overall, I just think that Sasuke is a lot more versatile. I think his moveset's a lot more versatile, and overall I think he does more general damage to the whole entire cast comparably to Luffy, who may struggle against some characters, as well as also Piccolo, who also may struggle against specific character counters. But yeah, guys, that's going to be the video from me. Hopefully you guys really like this tier list. Tell me what you guys think about it down in the comment section below. And hopefully I get to see you guys on the next video. Peace.